That's about the removable collars, which I skipped by accident. I already talked immensely where the originals are unavailable, but usually. But I mean, watch the color playlist I made, a ton of them, which I'll discuss that. Right? I don't want to be one of those fellas who keep repeating oneself throughout the videos, and when one watches, bother watching all the videos, like always watching the same over and over again, simply because one repeats oneself. So the waistcoat, get either Scooty from the classics winemaker, or for example, go on to get all of those simultaneously, go upon the American, so eBay.com, and type, you try Old West vest, you'll see all the results. Then do another search, Western vest, or Frontier Classic vest, Scooty vest, cowboy vest, no cowboy vest, maybe wrong, winemaker vest. You may also try Civil War, but with the Civil War items, usually they are not second hand, and when they are second hand, usually they have very dense wool in order to be uniforms. So even denser than the wool of back then. Right? So be careful with that. And the Civil War shirts are too old a style, and usually there is that problem of the gusset arm that does not really fit into the coat, I find, especially once touched. So be careful with the Civil War imitations, and usually they are not actually second hand but made to order through eBay, these small shops. So they're actually making it upon ordering. Now moving on, so I talked about the coat, yes, the coat. So they have a steel grey, I think it is Scooty, and winemaker, or was it Frontier Classics, one of them, they have a tan version of that single-breasted, short frock coat, right? And if you desire for a frock coat, not in wool but not black, I do not have an option. It is not in second hand. And now for the overcoat, that is problematic. So for the other, especially if one desires to wear an overcoat due to warm, one is likely then to be wearing an original frock coat, which would be black. And these are very fake, especially the British or perhaps American, depending upon which American models. And that's the overcoat, even if it dates from the 1940s, may likely not fit over it. And you will never find, yes, you may find an Inverness, with a cape, and with an or without sleeves, but a very warm, very heavy Civil War imitation. I have not really found them, but I found some vintage military school ones that imitate a mid-Victorian style, but these date from the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, 60s, and are from military schools, sort of elite military schools in the United States of America, and perhaps sometimes in Britain, and are worn for parades and so on, and are as authentic as it gets, probably. So these are usually grey and or navy, not black, and have gilt buttons, but are very well constructed. So look upon Civil War with type military Inverness coat, military overcoat, military school Inverness cape on the American eBay, which is not eBay, or type ebay.us, it shall be directed to ebay.com. So ebay.com is the American eBay, right? So, and the good thing about the American eBay is you may also land upon British results, since they both use English. Right? So now for the gloves, indubitously there shall not be any original gloves. Even finding 1950s gloves is very hard. So we will have to settle for vintage here things, but I don't have my gloves in there, I left them at my mother's place. Vintage things which made it in 2000s, 90s, or so on and so forth. And for the footwear it gets more complicated, because with footwear, if it is not accurate, it really shows. So I move on to the footwear. Yes, the monocle. You can find original monocles and spectacles and all. These would be the easiest thing to find. or imitations if kind your size or whatever. Now with the footwear, I purchased these boots for my evening wear, but I'm not wearing them for evening because I got one size too big, so they look like clown shoes, because they were the only ones with buttons that would fit. So they're not originals at all. These are the brand Stacey Adams. And do not purchase anything from Stacey Adams. The worst thing was these were new. So against my principle, especially since there's leather, but the leather is so bad anyhow, it looks like plastic. So there's probably more plastic in that shoe than anything else. And see, it is the worst type of leather. Actually, the sole is better than the uppers, which is really odd. So the sole are leather, but the leather on top, this one, the velvet part is alright, but this toe cap, which imitates a sort of snake, but it's not a snake, and this tends to imitate kid skin, but it's really the worst quality leather that they literally plastify. The same manner they would for modern calf skin. The original calf skin, which they practically don't make anymore, was actually waxed and completely buffed off the flesh, so it was not actually laminated. Thus, it would require to be polished eventually. This is more rarely, but it would mean it was even more fragile than modern patent leather. I meant, sorry, not calf skin, patent leather. So this is made like modern patent leather in that it is really just a kit of plastic, so it can't be polished, which means that every time it gets scratched, it cannot be hidden. But it is naturally polished, which might seem is good, but it looks plasticky, and eventually it requires scratches very quickly, and these cannot, there's nothing you can do about it. You cannot put with a market with even worse than polished. You really cannot do anything. There's really nothing to do. So, and they contain, I mean, even that, and the whole shape is inaccurate. Because boots then, they look like women's shoes. They even look like women's shoes of back then. The only thing with the women's boots were really higher, and they had a more pronounced heel, and sometimes the heel often went like so. So it's very feminine heel. But otherwise, not only were they more pointy, towards the end of the 19th century it also had spade, which meant that it required a pronounced welt, so the welt would like almost, more welt would come off, and it went like so. And even before, when they did not have spade, first of all from 1890 onwards, there was not much of a difference between the right and left foot, unlike afterwards and especially today, because they had only begun making different boots for right and left foot. But anyhow, people talk about the heel. The heel is the least important thing, because anyhow, even if you get a very short heel like now, like I did with my British boots, which I had been polishing in my own playlist, the heel was too short, about that length, a little bit actually high. But eventually the top lifts were out. So when I got them repaired, I told them I paid for 2 top lifts. 2 pairs. I told them put 2 top lifts, so then the heel was alright. But the heel, however more pronounced, shall never give the correct shape, which really before the 1930s, 40s at the earliest, was never anything close to that flat. It had way more of an arch and of a cupping. It looks way more like a cupping at the heel. Why? Was that more pronounced? Yes, but especially that was tighter. Why? And even with factory-made ones, they were meant to fit many people because they had more sizes then, because people expected better quality. And not only did they have more sizes, but with good brands, like expensive brands like Edward Goonan, though, to have different sizes, but never with their boots did they have that much of a tight heel, because people do not expect it to fit that tightly, number one. And heels that collapsed because of overweight and obesity today. That was not the case before the 50s, even in the way it is today before the 90s or 70s at least. And that fit, so we made it work with an ankle set. The only footwear that is easily available second-hand, so it is modeled to get it all that is made of leather and tortured animals, that looks pretty much authentic and is made more or less exactly the same made, because remember that was the beginning for non-upper class people of the more factory-made things that they already had. They already wear since 1868. They already had machine-stitched uppers since before that, since the 1850s. They already had machines to help that machine to copy the last, make a mirror image of the last. Henceforward, how they started having in the mid-80s, or even perhaps early 80s, feet, boots for the right and left feet, unlike before.